I do want women to know that there is an alternative to suppressing their bodies with hormones, that they can see their body as a good and they can live in that body holistically.
Totally. Oh my gosh, it's amazing.
Join co-hosts Jamie Rocci and Teresa Kenny as they educate women about the beauty of the feminine design and empower women to take charge of their health.
They're going to be so amazing. You're going to be so empowered by understanding your feminine genius and your hormone genius. I don't think I could live my whole life knowing this and not sharing it with anyone.
Hello, and welcome to the Hormone Genius Podcast. I am here with my co-host, Jamie Rocci, and we have a special guest that we have had on at least 2, maybe 3 times before. She is our all-star guest. We have Dr. Marguerite Duane. She has some exciting news because she's got a new position, and we are so excited and stoked about this all across the country and the world because this is the first ever program that is in a medical school for fertility awareness education and research at Duquesne University in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And Dr. Duane is officially the director of that program, as she always is also the director of facts about fertility and continues to do her amazing work there. And we're excited to talk about some things medical in relationship to cycles. She's got some great ideas. I am grateful and honored to be a presenter at the virtual conference coming up in October 10th and 11th. It's a virtual conference for facts about fertility, and it's going to be all about healthy lifestyles in relationship to your menstrual cycles. And this is going to be profound because we know as women, our behaviors, our lifestyles truly affect our hormones. I think that's pretty apparent to women out there. So we're going to dive deep into this topic, and we want to thank Dr. Duane for being with us here today. I know you wanted a simple title for this podcast episode, and so I'm just going to let you go with it. Just tell us about what you were thinking in relationship to this episode, and really it comes with a beautiful story too.
Yeah, absolutely. I know we're super excited about having you speak on the topic of stress and its impact on fertility at our conference, our virtual conference, Lifestyle for Healthy Cycles, where we'll talk about nutrition and exercise and all of these things. And as I was thinking about how much these factors do play a role in our health and in our ability to ovulate, and as a result, our ability to get our period. And as a physician, as a direct primary care practice, MD for life, I have direct communication with my patients, and they'll often text me or call me. And one of the most common texts that I receive that frankly, for me, even causes a range of emotions is the text that the period, my patient says, I got my period. 4 simple words, I got my period. For some people, that's like super exciting news. You know, it's the young girl like, mommy, I got my first period. And it's this sign that she's entering into her womanhood and like this, incredible transition into this next phase of her life. And that's so exciting. But then I got my period from the couple that's been trying month after month after month. And that heart-wrenching pain of I'm so sorry it didn't happen, this month. And just yesterday I had a patient text me again, I got my period, exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point. And I was overjoyed to get that news because this is one of my patients I've not really been working with for a whole long period of time, just a few months, but she hasn't had a period in 17 years. And it's something that, doctors before me were like, it's not that big of a deal. We'll give you birth control, give you a withdrawal bleed. If you want to get pregnant, you can always do IVF. And that's where she was led and told that she had to do in order to grow her family without anyone actually saying to her, actually, your period is a reflection. It marks the end of your ovulatory cycle, and ovulation is a sign of health. So if you're not getting your period, that's a sign that you're not necessarily healthy. And, this patient had discovered fertility awareness, restorative reproductive medicine just in the last year or two. And once she discovered it, she was like, why have I never learned this? Why have people not ever told me that my period is a good thing, that it is a sign of health. And as she learned, she wanted to learn more. And, she reached out to me as a potential patient saying, I'm 40 years old. You think I can still get my period? It's been 17 years. I'm like, absolutely. We need to look at the factors that are affecting your cycle. And for her, like so many of my patients, it relates to the lifestyle factors, to the level of stress, to the amount of exercise, to the nutritional intake, and with this patient in particular, we work to address each one of these factors. And within 6 months, due to her hard work, our collaboration, her working with, hormone coaches and nutrition coaches to help support her and frankly, to help me as a physician to support her, we were able to help her achieve her goal of having a period, which in this case was, a true sign of health and an exciting, message to receive. Although, like I said, sometimes I get that text, I got my period, and whole other reaction. But in this case, it was just magical to see when we address those lifestyle factors, like people will learn about in our virtual conference on October 10th and 11th, that it really does transform people's lives and improve their health.
What's so interesting too about your story, Dr. Duane, is her age.
Yeah.
It's her age. Typically we're thinking, okay, we're about 10 years before that menopause, or in the 35, 40s, where now our cycle is becoming less regular. And she didn't have a cycle at all, a true cycle, a true period for 17 years. And so it's not too late, is what Dr. Duane is saying. It's not too late. And, and I think about women's health care. When we talk about women's healthcare, I once typed that into Google, Dr. Duane, and everybody listening, just put it into Google. What is women's healthcare? Just write it, type it in. You can do it now if you want. You will get two different answers. There's the first answer that they'll say contraception, abortion is women's healthcare. And then the second one, it will not be that. It'll say abortion, contraception is not women's healthcare. And it's always around this idea of what is women's healthcare? What is women's healthcare? We know that to be a healthy, functioning woman means to have our fertility cycle, ovulation. But somewhere down the road, that was not made clear. Because obviously, right now, we're trying to right the wrong. We're trying to rewrite the narrative of women's healthcare. So in your opinion, Dr. Duane, because of course this means so much to you, and the first ever college in the history of the world now is focusing on fertility awareness education. Where did that go wrong? Like, where did that go wrong down in our past? And tell me what your vision is for the future.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think unfortunately, where things veered off course was in the early 1960s with the advent of hormonal contraception. I think we fail to recognize that women are uniquely different from men, and that what makes us different is our reproductive health systems. And with the advent of the birth control pill, which was hailed as this great, advancement for women's health because it would free them to have sex without, the concern of pregnancy, it failed to recognize the importance of our female hormones for our overall health. And what it really did is it relegated women's health to reproductive health. I mean, honestly, when you ask who are the women's health physicians in the world, people think of OBGYNs. Obstetricians and gynecologists are great and they're fantastic, but their focus is on the reproductive health system only. As a woman, I am more than my reproductive health organs, right? My heart health, my mental health, my pulmonary health. All of these factors play a critical role in my overall health, as do our women's health hormones, our reproductive health hormones, estradiol and progesterone, right? We fail to recognize as a society that estradiol and progesterone, while they are critical in reproductive health and in allowing ovulation to occur, they're also so important for other aspects of health. Like estradiol is critically important for mental health, for cognitive function, for heart health. Progesterone is also important for bone health and for mental health. And in fact, we are planning for our 2026 in-person conference in Peoria, Illinois on April 10th and 11th. And we're talking about addressing whole body healthcare, by sharing the facts about restorative reproductive medicine and talking about why it's not enough to simply use birth control, not only to prevent pregnancy, but because it shuts down the female health hormones. So with the advent of hormonal birth control, not only was it used for contraception, but pretty soon after, within the next decade or two, we started using hormonal birth control to quote unquote treat all that ails woman. If the woman comes in with irregular cycles, she's put on hormonal birth control to quote unquote regulate her cycle or give her a regular withdrawal bleed. If she had painful periods, she's put on hormonal birth control. If she has PMS symptoms, she's put on hormonal birth control. It doesn't fix the issue. And in my patient whose story I shared, she started out in adolescence having a cycle, and it was good and it was normal and it was regular, and then she got to college and was a college athlete, and because of over exercise and inadequate nutritional intake, she stopped getting her cycle, and her doctors offered her hormonal birth control. And she never really had any significant withdrawal bleeds, and the problem is they never restored the health. Now in her case, when you have irregular cycles, we often think of polycystic ovarian syndrome as a leading cause of irregular cycles, and it is, and it's also a leading cause of infertility. But functional hypothalamic amenorrhea is also a leading cause of irregular cycles and infertility, and you treat them very differently, right? And this is where, again, like, it's my duty, or my duty as a physician, or Teresa's duty as a women's health nurse practitioner, to make the diagnosis, but the treatment really needs a tailored plan when it comes to nutrition and exercise. Like my PCOS patients, I'm often trying to get them to exercise more. With this patient, my first recommendation is like, you need to significantly scale back your exercise by exercising like 80 to 90% less than what you're already doing. And then it's also addressing the nutritional aspects. And again, unfortunately, in medicine, we're typically, not only we're not trained in fertility awareness-based methods and restorative reproductive medicine, we're really not well trained in nutritional support and exercise support. So while it's super exciting that Duquesne University's College of Osteopathic Medicine is hosting this Center for Fertility Awareness Education and Research, and we're integrating training on FABMs at every level of the medical school curriculum, so every medical student will be exposed to this, we're still sorely lacking in the area of nutritional support. That's why we're hosting the virtual conference on this topic. And this is why within my own medical practice, I work with nutritionists and fertility educators and hormone coaches, like Kathy Riley, who, is a fertility care practitioner. She's trained as a hormone coach. She's been incredibly helpful with supporting my patients to achieve their goals. But that's where it really veered. But from a future perspective, thanks in part to the rise of restorative reproductive medicine, the work that we're doing at FACS, the work that's being done through the Institute of Restorative Reproductive Medicine of America, the work that you all are doing through the Hormone Genius podcast, the attention that is being brought to this issue through MAHA, the Make America Healthy, again, movement, who hosted a panel on this topic that Teresa and I were both invited to participate in June. Like, people are recognizing we really need to address women's health by identifying and treating the root cause, and treating the female cycle as the fifth vital sign that even ACOG, the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, recognizes and can get on board with. So it's a matter of bringing more people on board. And that's what we're doing through Facts About Fertility more broadly, and then through my work at Duquesne University with the center, starting with that group of medical students. So that's the goal, is to seed this information more broadly.
I want to dive into, because this is my topic, so I do want to take some time to talk about functional hypothalamic amenorrhea, because I think you even said it at the last conference we were at together, that this is on the rise, that we're seeing more patients with this condition. And just to summarize, what you were talking about with where we are in women's healthcare and where we came from, I often think of nursing too, because when I went through nursing school, there was such a more holistic mentality. Like, the body systems were always a part of each other. Like, if your heart was a problem, it was going to affect your lungs. If it was, your mouth was full of decay, it could actually affect your heart. Like, the body systems
and affect your pregnancy, right?
Yeah, so many, like, I felt like in nursing education, there was this more holistic, like, the body is not a siloed system, it's a whole complete system. And I think in some ways, medicine has gotten a little off track in that way, that we have siloed things so much that we forget that they all work and interplay together. And that's partly because we have specialists, which are great. I mean, I'm so grateful for specialists, but at the same time, someone's got to put it all back together, right?
This
So,
is
I mean,
why I
I
love
just,
being a family physician.
exactly. So we need that mentality of like, it's not just this part. And with the female reproductive system, as you said, we just went stagnant with like research and like understanding of the female reproductive system, because if you can suppress it, if your entire treatment plan is just don't make it work anymore, like nobody cared about what the problems were that were the root underlying things that affected people's fertility and their mental health and their physical health. So that's just my kind of summarization of that. But let's talk about functional hypothalamic amenorrhea. We know stress affects the fertility pacemaker. And we talk about the fertility pacemaker a lot because it's easy for people then to understand that the brain is really the main sex organ. Like it is the control center of how our fertility system works. When stress becomes high, and that could be chronically or acutely, it puts a damper or a halt in some way, or it disrupts the fertility pacemaker. And when it does that acutely and strongly, and each individual is unique in this, it will literally shut down the entire reproductive system for a very long time. As you said with your patient, 17 years. And I've seen patients in that category of the 8 to 10 years, no period. But how do we help these patients understand that what their behaviors and what's going on in their lifestyle is truly the what is causing this problem? And then how can we help them restore their lifestyle to a place that allows that pacemaker to fire back on?
Yeah. Yeah, no, it is more and more prevalent. I mean, I am seeing more and more adolescent girls with functional hypothalamic amenorrhea. I mean, I had a patient that had come to me after she was 19, 20 years old. She heard one of our fact speakers giving a presentation at her school and like Googled us, Googled me, found out I was near her hometown. And so I started seeing her. She'd been suffering with amenorrhea for over a year. And again, underweight. But really she just like a lot of people today, just kind of rebelling against all of the processed foods in our environment. And a college student, didn't necessarily have the resources to buy the healthier whole food options. And so really struggled to eat to eat healthy. But we really worked on the nutritional aspect. She ended up doing a semester abroad in Europe and had the opportunity to eat really good, healthy, whole foods. And at the end of that semester, with the weight gain, was able to start cycling again. And it was just, there's so much wrong with our food system and with the stress that we're placing, on our bodies, and on our young girls especially. And we really do need to address this holistically. And again, like this is why I pursued family medicine. But in medical school training, we are kind of taught to kind of keep things separate. And honestly, like we have so much education and training in pharmacology, but not on good nutrition, right? Sometimes I feel like medical schools are training doctors to become professional drug dealers, when we really need to be as professional diagnosticians and really working to address things from a multi perspective. And again, we absolutely need our specialists. And, I love getting to work with some of the amazing specialists in the field of restorative reproductive medicine and outside, whether it's physicians or again, nutritionists or other healthcare professionals, they're so critically important. And, another patient story, I had a patient reach out to me last fall, really stressed, suffered for years with painful periods. Again, very common concern that we see. Again, told IVF was her only option. Like my first patient, felt like she had no other option and had pursued that avenue, and successfully had one child, but was not able to have more, really wanted to have more. The whole process of IVF was so stressful for her. And so she reached out to me, and we started right away. And in addition, she had issues with, in addition to the painful period, she had issues with insulin resistance. So again, starting right on board with addressing the nutrition. We definitely did use medication. I'm not saying that medication isn't necessary. We used the medication because of her painful periods, endometriosis. I sent her to Dr. Young. She had surgery. Within a month, within 4 months of working with me, she conceived naturally. And when she had the positive pregnancy test, she was stunned. She was like, Dr. Duane, I was told I would never conceive naturally. And I was like, well, congratulations, you did. And I don't know what to say. Like, and she was 40, right? I mean, like, I had another patient, and stress is real, right? And stress, we can talk about this, affects our hormones. And unfortunately, like, stress can impair our ability to get pregnant. It can adversely affect our cycle. And sometimes very well-meaning people will tell people like, oh, try not worry about getting pregnant. Like, just don't be stressed and it'll happen. And like, that's really, really hard news for any woman to hear. You're like, you think I'm trying not to? And, and, again, I think it comes from a well-meaning place when people say that, but there is science to show that stress does adversely impact infertility. And, I'll share another story. I had a patient, she was my oldest patient to date that conceived. She started working with me the month she turned 40. I remember she reached out. It was right before I was moving to Utah to do my research fellowship with Dr. Stanford back in 2020. And she's like, I can't wait for you to get back in a year. I'm going to be 41. Like, we need to start working together. And we did. And we were addressing a lot of things. And she still had not been able to conceive. And she finally reached a point where she's like, you know what, Dr. Duane, like, when I started with you, my cycles were really irregular. I thought I might be going in perimenopause. Now they're regular and it's not happening. And I just think I need a break. And I'm like, totally. I think that's a great plan. Like, she for herself immensely made that decision. Like, I'm having healthy cycles. I need to stop checking the labs every month. Like, I may even stop charting. I'm like, that's fine. You have my number. Like, I'm here if you need me. Literally, Teresa, 3 months later, she texted me with a picture of her positive pregnancy test and was like, oh my goodness, what does this mean? And I was like, that means you're pregnant. Congratulations. So, this was a woman who had texted me before, like, I got my period. And when she would text me, I'm like, I'm so sorry. In this text of like, what does this mean? I have a positive pregnancy test. And, she was at a place in her life where she was able to like make the decision to stop. But when she stopped actively trying, it was after we had restored regular cycles. So at 43, this woman conceived and gave birth naturally, and that's so incredibly exciting. Now, does it happen for everyone? No, it doesn't. But, I'm going to be presenting data in a couple of weeks about my success in my own practice, and I'm happy to share a little bit more if we have time in this podcast.
That would be awesome, Dr. Duane. Something I think is very interesting too is, again, it's never too late in how we can invest in our health now, even for our postmenopausal years. We have a good maybe 10 years of our own bioidentical or biological estrogen and progesterone, and how, like you were saying at the very beginning of this episode, that's protective of our mood, our brain health, our heart health, our bone health. I mean, it's not too late. But I do want to just make a little interruption in our show today to thank our podcast partners, We Heart Nutrition. When it comes to being healthy and whole, and if we are having a hard time finding nutrition from the foods we're eating, it's always important to supplement. Unfortunately, our soils are depleted of minerals that once were there and now they're not because of just how our food system is today. So again, if you're not on a healthy and whole multi-supplement, especially if you're a woman, I would consider looking into We Heart Nutrition. If you type in Genius, you'll get 20% off your first order. So weheartnutrition.com. Thank you so much for partnering with us, Genius, for 20% off. All right. So I wanted to make sure I shared that quick. But Dr. Duane, what I'm hearing you say is there are some easy lifestyle adjustments, sometimes not so easy because we have mindsets around and habits that form around lifestyle. But it makes me think of a time I was working with a client who had totally irregular cycles, maybe just a couple periods a year. And she was very thin. She was told she had PCOS, but I encouraged her to eat a half of an avocado a day. Oh, I don't like avocados. Well, would you try it in a smoothie? Yes, I'll try it in a smoothie. Literally 2 weeks later, she got her period. She's never missed a period. And that was like 5 years ago. She keeps eating avocados every day, like nutrient dense, healthy fats. Did she really have PCOS? Was she diagnosed properly? I don't know her full story, but probably not, you know. And so it is so interesting that sometimes things seem super overcomplicated when honestly, if we just were encouraged to incorporate something healthy into our lifestyle, it can make all the difference in the world.
Yeah. Yeah. And unfortunately, again, going back to the way that we're trained, right? And is we go to the more complicated first, right? Like, we might do a cursory, look at some of these things. Right now there's a lot of talk in the media about infertility and treating infertility and restorative reproductive medicine versus IVF. And the IVF doctors are saying, well, we do restorative reproductive medicine. Like we look for all of the causes, we treat all of those. My patient that just is now 7 months pregnant, she had been complaining of symptoms consistent with insulin resistance for years when I saw her in December, long before she, was even trying to get pregnant. She said they never evaluated her for insulin resistance. That was never a diagnosis she was given. She was told she had endometriosis. They did a surgery with for ablation, but they never actually went in and removed all the endometriosis. They never actually went in and evaluated for insulin resistance. And, they went to IVF. And then when she ran out of embryos, they were like, you need to go back and do another round of egg retrieval. And she was like, wait a second, what? So it's not enough to give it oh, I told them to eat healthy, right? Yes, eating healthy, eating an avocado. Well, I don't like avocados. Okay, well, how can we figure this out, right? And as a family physician, we're often trained to help our patients set SMART goals that are specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time sensitive, right? So I'd like you to eat a half a avocado a day. Okay, well, that's not realistic because I don't like it. Okay, how do we address that, right? So what you did, Jamie, is a perfect example of that. Now, with my patient, like, yes, we worked on the nutrition, but she did need metformin to address the insulin resistance. And she did need, endometriosis surgery with Dr. Young to really fully effectively treat it. So while sometimes it can be easy and straightforward, sometimes it is more complicated. And oftentimes, I find, back to your comment, Teresa, about the patients with functional hypothalamic amenorrhea, it's even more complicated, in our young girls. And in the patient population, we're going to talk about this too at our virtual conference, the patient population as a group that has the highest rates of infertility. Do you have any idea, like, which group of women have the highest rates of infertility more than any other?
I don't, but I'm going to take a guess. Maybe is it like with the highest obesity or highest?
It's female physicians.
Stress.
Right? I mean, fertility rates are often quoted as 1 in 6, 1 in 7. Female physicians have an infertility rate of 1 in 4, right? And it's multifactorial. Certainly the stress of training and residency, the sleep deprivation. That's another important factor, not only for the women, but for the men, right? I mean, again, infertility is not a women's health issue. And you were talking about this, Teresa, earlier, like we need to treat like not only the whole person, but the whole couple, looking at the men and sleep deprivation, both in women and men. And that's very prevalent among the medical professional community. The nutrition, the exercise, all of these factors can contribute. But in female physicians, they have the highest rates of infertility. And on Friday night of our virtual conference, my colleague, Dr. Sanchez, who is a leading national expert in physician wellness and burnout prevention, she's actually giving a talk specifically on physician infertility and wellness. So I really want to encourage any of your listeners who are physicians or who know physicians to invite them to join us for the virtual conference. I mean, the beautiful thing about this conference is it will really appeal to a broad audience, medical professionals and patients alike. And while it's geared towards the medical community, certainly we welcome everyone, but we really do want to reach those physicians because unfortunately what these women are being told, what these physicians are being told, freeze your eggs, get through your schooling and your training and set up your practice. And then when you're 35, 38, 40, then you can start having babies. But there's so many issues, surrounding that. I'm a big believer of like, let's educate and empower and help people to make healthy choices. And part of that choice may be like choosing to have children during our training process. And we need to set up a healthcare system and a medical education system that allows that. And I personally am very inspired by my colleague at Duquesne, Dr. Anita Showalter, who I report to in my role as the Director of Center of Fertility Awareness Education and Research. She is a OBGYN and chair of specialty medicine, and she's a mother of 4 and grandmother of many more. But she interestingly got married at 18 and had 4 children before even going to college and medical school and becoming a very successful practicing OBGYN. So there's not one path to pursuing your dreams in your professional dreams. And we shouldn't have to sacrifice our personal dreams and our personal goals for our professional dreams. So I think there's so much to consider there.
I think when you're talking, Dr. Duane, I'm thinking about kind of extremes. And I think your example of the female physician, to some degree, I mean, we could call that an extreme profession, right? You go to medical school, it's pretty intense, residency, lots of sleep deprivation, lots of stress. So that's an extreme. So if you're a patient out there listening, or you consider yourself someone that needs help in this area of women's health, fertility, you might ask yourself, am I on the spectrum of an extreme? And so that could be in relationship to a lot of areas, in relationship to undernourishment or overnourishment. Am I in an extreme? Do I sit in a place where I don't think I eat enough? I'm in a calorie deficit. I'm underweight. I have a history of an eating disorder. I am an extreme athlete. I exercise more than 2 to 3 hours a day. These are extremes, right? Or it could be someone who's in the healthcare professional world who is a night shift worker, or is somebody who just never slept. Are you one of those people that says, I only need 4 hours of sleep a night? That's just me. I'm not saying that's Dr. Duane. It might just be me. Or if, again, you have some sort of a high stress job, maybe I'm a police officer, maybe I'm a firefighter, maybe I'm a mom of a lot of kids, or maybe I foster. So what I'm trying to point out here is that if you look at your lifestyle, right, or life in general, and you say to yourself, do I feel in any way that I lean on an extreme in these areas that we're focused on, then you probably need help. And particularly, you probably need help if you're noticing that it's affecting your menstrual cycle, right?
Yes.
My menstrual cycles are irregular. My periods are coming every 2 weeks, even. I haven't had a period in 8 months. I mean, there's a variety of ways that it could disrupt the menstrual cycle. But if you find yourself in an extreme and a disruption of the menstrual cycle, here's where we want you to start making that connection that it could be related. And so now I want to take an opportunity to, have maybe Jamie kind of pipe in here on the lifestyle aspect and what her services at Fiat Institute offer. Not that that's the only way to get help in these lifestyle areas, but it's an incredible, valuable tool to do so. And I know you, Dr. Duane, have used people in this area also, because we only have so much time as our own kind of practices allow us. And so we a lot of times want to partner in the community with other people who are experts, particularly in lifestyle, where in medical school and training, we didn't get a lot of this in a deep dive way.
Right.
Yeah.
The key is collaboration, right? And in fact, that's central to our name, the Fertility Appreciation Collaborative to Teach the Science. And in my medical practice, that's critical to what I do. So I love to collaborate with, fellow specialists, nutritionists, hormone coaches. And yeah, so grateful to you, Teresa, for your mentorship and your education, and Jamie, to you for the wonderful work that you're doing, and even the possibility of collaborating with you and working, on your program, which is fantastic.
Yeah, thank you so much. And it is true, like we need each other to really promote this message. And something that I just think is a big missing opportunity in the area of health in general for women is charting the cycle. And so, we pay money to get our lab work done. We spend time doing this. We spend time getting our gut mapping. We spend time with, getting our hair tissue mineral analysis. We're trying to find answers all the time. But I always ask people in the health coaching arena, like, do you reference the fertility cycle for the woman? Like, if you're working with a female and they're doing all these tests, which they're good tests, are good. We want to know what we're working with here. But if we're not using this free assessment, the assessment of our cycle gives us so much information about the state of our health. And so that's really what inspired me to start the Fiat Institute, to train women to be hormone coaches, to help promote lifestyle and health in light of the cycle. What do we see in the cycle? Do we not have any mucus pattern whatsoever? Well, then what might that point to? Maybe we're not ovulating. Maybe we're not drinking enough water. What was our period like? What is a period? Why do we have a heavy period? Where are we working upriver? We're always thinking about what's the root cause. The symptoms are downstream from the upriver root cause. And so hormone coaches are really investigators. We're navigators. We're helping that woman who may or may not know her cycle, but we teach her. And then we really work to work upriver. And so I think I know the world, women's healthcare need what hormone coaches bring. I get the question too of what makes you different than a health coach or a fertility awareness instructor, where we're viewing health in light of the cycle. So health coaches, generally, they miss the cycle altogether. Fertility cycle instructors, they miss the health stuff altogether. Like hormone coaches, we bring them together and then, like you said, collaborate with medical professionals so that that woman truly is seen behind the chart.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what we need. We need to be able to tie it all together to help women, who are at the extremes come to the middle. And I think that's really important, and not only within our health, but within this movement of restorative reproductive medicine. Like, we really need to meet each other in the middle and work together. I mean, I will often get the question, like, with facts about fertility, like, how is that different from NAPRO or FEM? And like, what is your role related to the Institute of Restorative Reproductive Medicine? And I think we all play a critical role. And at FACS, we're so excited to be able to collaborate with our colleagues at FEM and Neofertility to do training cohorts. So like, they provide the didactic content, we provide the opportunity for collaboration and discussion and, applications in this. The International Institute of Restorative Reproductive Medicine really focuses on the research and now has a new journal for restorative reproductive medicine, which is incredibly, important as we're trying to advance the science. At FACS, we're really focused on education, and not just education of medical students. Yes, medical students are important, but we educate nursing students. I mean, it was thanks to Teresa Kenny, I finally got to meet Jackie Harris at Benedictine College, where we've been teaching a curriculum to nursing students. But now we're training residents, and we will also be launching a fellowship program, again, in collaboration with Ascension Health, who's a platinum organizational member of FACS. So, and it's through this that we're going to prepare more medical professionals, more hormone coaches to provide more holistic, whole body, comprehensive, integrative, restorative reproductive health care, not only for the betterment of women, the betterment of men, children, and families. And to do that, like, I can't thank you ladies enough for always inviting me back to have these conversations. I love going to conferences and talking to people like, I heard you on the Hormone Genius podcast. It's my favorite podcast. I'm like, I know, I love it too. It's really, really awesome. But, I love talking with anyone and everyone, because ultimately at FACS, and personally, my goal is to educate, to empower, and to engage. And this is what we need to do so that we can transform the medical culture, so that within every community, there are physicians and other medical professionals trained in restorative reproductive medicine, so that the patient that I talked about at the start of this episode, I mean, she flew across the country to see me as a doctor. Like, people should have this in their own communities, and it's so important to be able to offer this. And so just always so grateful to be able to collaborate, to meet people where they are, to educate, empower, engage, to bring all of us to the middle, to help women, men, and people overall have better holistic healthcare.
Yeah, that's why we bring you on, because you were like the great, you're like the leader, you're like the Joan of Arc, and like you got your big flag, you've kind of stuck it in the ground, right? And then you're like, come join me. And then if you see someone and they're like, I think I want to join, you're like, great, I've got something for you. You're like, you know how to put people to work. And that's why we bring you on, because we know that there are people all over listening that are like, I feel so much in my heart about this. Like, you have a personal experience with poor women's healthcare. You're a medical professional that wishes you could offer more to their patients in this area, but you don't have the tools yet, or you don't know what to do. And if you're wondering, again, reach out to Jamie and I. We're happy to put you in touch with Dr. Duane. She will help you find your place in this incredible area and movement so that we can change the culture of women's health to a more restorative, more root cause approach, so that everybody in the end feels healthier, gets the family of their dreams, that we all feel this like fulfillment in the fact that this is true, good, and beautiful healthcare. So as we wrap up here, I have questions for both Jamie and you, Dr. Duane. I'll let Jamie kind of finish up with the last question we always ask, and we want all the details about your upcoming conferences, particularly the one that's coming up in October. But Jamie, I want you to for sure just plug the hormone coach thing, because this is an opportunity you have right now. And you are, you're looking for those people that are, their hearts are burning and they're like, maybe I want to be a hormone coach.
Yeah.
And so tell them about how they can sign up to do that.
Yep. So if you visit fiatinstitute.com, there will be a button to inquire for more information. You'll get information on how to book a one-on-one call with me. Also, there are live webinars that I feature multiple times a year. So be sure to keep in on the loop on that. We can include information in the show notes. And the time is now, ladies. It's like truly the time is now. We've always needed hormone coaches. We've always needed fertility awareness instructors, but now what I think is happening in facts speakers. But now I think what's happening is the world, like clients and patients and women and men are now coming to know and learn that they need us more. Yeah. So we've always been needed, but now I think people are coming to know that they need us, which means
the demand is going up.
Yes, the demand is increasing, which means there needs to be more service professionals. There need to be more professionals in this area of women's health. So with that, Dr. Duane, again, as usual, thank you for being on our show. And I'm going to ask you the question we ask all of our guests: what do you wish every woman knew about her hormone genius? And I challenge you to make it different, because you've been able to make this answer different each time we visit you. So I don't know. It actually doesn't have to be different. It can be the same, because we can hear the same thing over and over. Which is
I don't know if it will be different, because I don't remember what I've said the last time. I think probably the most important thing that I want women to know about their hormone genius is that they have a hormone genius, right? And it's their right to understand and to know what that genius is, to understand how their hormones function, and to recognize the critical role that their hormones play in women's health. I also want your listeners to know that everyone, as you alluded to, Teresa, everyone has a role in this world. And in fact, certainly everyone is welcome, whether you're a patient that has suffered with not getting your period or getting your period too much, or, we are always looking for patients who want to share your story with our students who are learning this, who want to interview, whether you're a medical professional. We are always looking for more amazing preceptors like you, Teresa, who share your case studies, and physicians and other medical professionals that can have our students and our residents shadow them in their practices. And we want everyone to understand their hormone genius. But to do this, we need to train, the current and the future medical professionals about the beauty of the female cycle, how it truly serves as a fifth vital sign, how women can learn to master this, how they can connect with clinicians that are trained to interpret the chart, and how they can work with hormone coaches to help them optimize their health, by, leaving the extremes and coming to the middle so they can experience the joy of getting their period when they haven't in 17 years and the joy of not getting their period when they've been trying to conceive for so long. So that I got my period, it really does invoke all kinds of emotions. But when women truly understand what's behind their period and that it reflects ovulation and that truly is a sign of health, then they will have mastered their hormone genius. So ladies, thank you so much as always for the amazing job. And I will, as you said, Teresa, put in a plug for our virtual conference on October 10th and 11th. All are welcome to learn from Dr. Sanchez on physician wellness and infertility on Friday night. And on Saturday, hear about stress, sleep, nutrition, and exercise. I do believe we still have opportunities for people who are interested in sponsoring and exhibiting. So we invite that. And I do invite people to mark your calendar, save the date for our 2026 conference in Peoria, Illinois. We just came up with our theme, Facts for Restoring Reproductive and Whole Body Healthcare. So that's going to be on April 10th and 11th. So thank you again, ladies, for inviting me. And to your listeners, as always, I'd love to hear your kind words. So be sure to reach out to Facts through info@factsaboutfertility.org if you want to learn more.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I know I will be in Peoria, so I will see you there.
And hopefully Jamie too.
Oh yeah, I'll be there. Thanks for listening to the Hormone Genius Podcast. Please remember to share our podcast with your friends and family, and also follow us on social media. If you were not aware, we have a YouTube channel. So if you could like and subscribe to our YouTube channel to stay in the loop with all of our latest episodes, we would appreciate that. Thank you so much for your support. We are excited to journey alongside you as you discover the beauty and the genius of your hormones.